Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is video on ReactJS authentication with JWT access token, and JWT token made up of three important parts like header, payload, signature. Header contains information like type of token and the algorithm used. Okay. Payload contains user claims like phone number, roles, all those claims can be encrypted into the token. Okay. And signature means to secure the token. Okay. Generally, JW token is a secure token. Okay. So once signed in, signature will be available. So that information available in the signature part. Okay. So this is the JW token, and simply we can call JW token as a authenticated user secret key. Okay, using that key, if the request comes at the server, if that secret key is valid, then API or server application thinks that this user is authenticated. Okay, now let's jump into create the React.js application. So command for creating the React application is npx space and template name, that is create react app. Okay, that represent React.js template name and name of your project. So let's run the command. Project created successfully. Let's open the project. Okay, now this is our project, right? Let's install the React Bootstrap. So go to React Bootstrap website, click on get started. And first, let's install the React Bootstrap as well as Bootstrap libraries in our project. Okay, copy that command, open the terminal. Okay, install the Bootstrap. So Bootstrap successfully installed. Now let's add the CSS reference of Bootstrap into the index.js file. Okay, so go to index.js file. So here I can remove few unwanted things for my demo like report web vitals and remove this method as well and remove the strict mode. Okay, so these are the things I want to remove, and now let's add the bootstrap CSS reference. Bootstrap list CSS bootstrap min.css. Now let me create a React component like layout. So in that layout I will have a common UI logic like menu. Okay, so for that, let me create a folder inside of the SRC like components, and one more folder inside of it like shared, and inside of it, let me create a React component like layout.js. Okay, so here is our layout. Now I want to add Bootstrap menu here. For that, go to Bootstrap website and go for component section. Okay, and here go for navbar. Okay, from here copy any one example. Let me copy this and add inside of this imaginary tags. I want to full navbar menu to my application, so remove the containers. Okay, for now I don't need any navbar item. Okay, name it like auth demo. Okay, navbar brand, and here I have to add the navbar component naming references. Okay, now here I want to add a bootstrap container and name is automatically imported. Inside of the bootstrap container, I want to display my pages content. Okay, my application pages content. So to render the application pages content, I can destructure the props like children, and I can pass the children here in the expression. Okay, now pages, whatever page will render, right, that content will be rendered inside of it. Okay, now let's render this layout. So we know in React, app component is our entry React component. So here let me remove all the existing HTML. Let me add imaginary tags. Inside of that imaginary tag, let me render my layout. Okay, layout name also imported. Okay, pages content. Okay, now let's run and check our output. So open one more terminal and run our React application by entering command npm start. We can see our Bootstrap menu added and page content also displaying. Let's create a page component like home. So this page can be accessed by authenticated users as well as non-authenticated user, like a guest page. Anyone can access our home page. Okay. So create a new folder inside of the src. Okay. Folder like pages, and let me add the React component like home.js. Okay, here is our home component. Now the thing is, this is just like a welcome page, right? Home page. So I will add just small welcome message here. Okay, let me add the div, and inside of the div content, I want to display it at the center. So let me add the styling. Okay, so class name, Bootstrap class name like dflex. Okay, justify content center. Okay, and I want to align all the items inside of this center. Okay, and I want to give some width and heights. For that I can use style tag. Okay, a min height 500 pixel and min width some 500 pixel. Okay, and inside of it I want to display some welcome message. For that, let me add the uh, card component from the Bootstrap. So go to cards. Okay, copy this card, add it here. Let me remove this card size. I don't want this card image. Okay, use card title and name it like welcome a demo on ReactJS JWT Authentication. Okay, and remove the button and import the namespace, cards namespace. Okay, so this is my home component and I have to configure the route for it. So for that, let's install the React router DOM. Okay, okay, and click on npm link. So copy the command, open terminal, install the React router DOM. So our package installed successfully. First thing is in the index.js, we have to wrap our app component using browser component. Okay, browser router component. So browser router component that loads from the React router component. Okay, and next, to enable routing for our application, I can do it at app.js. Okay, so based on routing, my component should be rendered, right? So inside of layout, I can configure the routing. So can use routes that loads from the React route. Inside of routes, we can give child route that specifies each individual component rendering route. Okay, so here it will have attribute like path. So specify like slash, that means home path. So for home path, we want to render home component, right? For that, I can use elements and inside of the element we have to specify the component name. Okay, so that is my home page routing. Now let's test it. See, you can see this is our home page and this is our welcome message. Okay, now let's create another component like login component. Okay, so another page component where we have login form. Okay, so here in the pages create login component. Okay. Now in this login component, let's try to add the form. Okay, login form. So first let me add a container, bootstrap container. I want some margin top 2, and inside of it let me create a row, bootstrap row column. Okay, and inside of it let me create call component. Okay, and let's add some bootstrap stylings like call MD8, 8 parts of the 12 column. I want to display my form, and on each side 2 column space I need for that offset MD2. Okay. Now inside of this column, let's define the form. Let's add a first legend for heading. Okay. So login form, and I can use form tag, and inside of it I want to add the form elements. Okay, so for that go to our React Bootstrap website and click on forms. Here from the sample example, just copy the form group, one form group, add it here and import the form group namespace. Okay, form group namespace, and I don't want this, some text is there, right? I don't want it. Okay, duplicate this form group. Okay, this is for username, first form field. Okay, username text, and it type will be password, second one, and change the name like password, controller name, label password, and I can remove the placeholders. Okay, I can remove the placeholders. Now let's add a button here. So let's go to Bootstrap. Here button, I can copy this button, add it inside of the button. For this form, I won't use submit, I will use like button type. Okay, so that I can use the click event. And since we used button, right, let's import the button namespace. So add the button namespace here, and let me use useref state hook, okay, for reading the form variables. Okay, use state variables. Okay, useref for username, and for password also create another useref variable. Okay, and we have to map them to our form fields. So here controller, you can use ref attribute. Okay, and pass our useref variable names here. So password same way ref. Okay, and pass our password. Now let me create a empty method for my form submit event. Okay, so name it like login submit. I want to make it a async function. Okay. For now, this will be an empty function, and let's register this with my onClick event. Okay. OnClick. Okay, that is my simple form. Now let's register the login route, sorry, login component route in our app component. So create one more route and path like login, okay, and element our login component element, okay. We have configured the login route also. Now let's add login menu item in the layout component. So go to layout.js. So here to add menu items, let me go here. Go to our components in React Bootstrap website. So in the components, go for navbar again. So in the navbar, let me copy this navbar toggle and navbar collapse. Okay. So add them here. Okay. So inside of this navbar, I can give navbar links. So first copy nav item. Okay, nav component. So we have to import the nav component namespace as well. Okay, import the namespace. Inside of it, I can add the navbar. Okay, and in the href, you can specify like login and login. Okay, now let's check the output. Here, small correction, it is not userref, useref. Okay, now let's check the output. Okay, here you can see my login link. If I click, my component is loading. One thing you can observe, on clicking the login, my page is reloading. That should not be reload, right? Because our React application should be a single page application. So for that, go to layouts. I cannot use href directly. Instead of that, I can use React router DOM configuration like as. There is a property on nav link you can use as and pass the link. Okay. So the link usually loads from the React Bootstrap. So from React router DOM, sorry, not Bootstrap, router DOM, and get the link property. Okay. And instead of href, I can use to. Okay. Same way, let me add the home page route for this brand. Okay. So remove href here, copy this nav link inside of this auth demo, and a link to home page. Okay, now let's check we are able to navigate to our components without page loading. Okay, if I click on login, nothing is happening because I am already in login page. Okay, now if I click on auth demo, see I navigated to my home page, but no page reload. If I click on login, no page reload. Okay, now that is good. Now I want to display this login button on right hand side corner. For that I can use Bootstrap class name margin starts auto. Okay, so that it gives left hand side spacing. Okay, now you can see my login button on right hand side corner. Okay, now to implement the JWT token, we have to call a API, right? Some server side application. So that application based on our username and password, it will return the access token and refresh token. So for that, I have already built a server application like Nest.js application, which is a node framework internally. Okay, it is Nest.js application. Okay, this is my GitHub link for my repository Nest.js Auth Authentication application. Okay, how to install it, how to run it, what are the endpoints available, all the things I have explained in the documentation. Okay, so here is my Nest.js application. Okay, so all the instructions available in the GitHub link, how to run, what are the endpoints, okay, what are the payloads, everything. But only thing we have to do is in this Nest.js application, go to main.ts file. So by default, this Nest.js application also runs under port number 3000. Okay. So, but our React application also runs under port number 3000. And in a system, no two applications cannot run under same port, right? So before running this server application, Nest.js application, please change it to some other port, any port of your choice. Okay. After changing that port number, you can run the application. For running the application, I have given the command here. Okay. So copy this command and inside of it, run it. Okay. Now I want to show you directly how we can get the access token using the Postman. Later, we can implement the logic for authentication in our React application. Okay. Okay. Here, my Nest.js application is successfully running. Okay. Now let's check the token from the Postman. For that, open Postman. Okay. So then go to our GitHub, copy the login API link. Okay. Paste it over here and it should be a post request. You can select from the drop down and go for body and select the JSON application slash JSON payload. Okay, and here the testing credentials. You have to use this only. Test and password is 1234. So copy this payload. Okay, and go to Postman, paste it over here. Okay, now if I click submitting this post request, okay, I have running port number 4000, right? So please make sure to give your port number that is running in your local machine. Okay, now submit again. See, encrypted tokens you can see one is access token and one is refresh token. So access token is for to check the whether the user is authenticated or not. Okay, this contains I have initially mentioned, right? It is made up of header, payload, and signature. Okay, and refresh token is some random key. So using this key, whenever access token expire, we can fetch the new access token. Okay. So next we are going to consume this API in our React.js application. Okay. So now we have completed our UI for login form, right? Now we have to invoke our API call. Okay. So this is our API call, auth login, right? So the first thing that we think about is in the login component. So this is the login component, right? In the login submit method, we want to invoke the login API. That is the first idea we will get in general. But the problem here is once the API call is successful, once we receive the access token, we are going to decrypt the access token because access token contains the user claims like email, phone number, or any other roles also it will contain. Okay, so I want to use them and I want to share that information across my entire React.js application. So in that case, it is not good to create the API call invocation directly here in the login component. Okay, so that means we need to maintain some kind of state. Okay, so for this demo, I am going to use the inbuilt state management of React.js that is like context API. Okay, for maintaining the state. So I am going to maintain the user information for my entire application, okay, through context type management. Okay, so let's create the context API. Okay, so for that, let's go to our components folder and inside of the shared, okay, let me create my authentication context. Okay, normal context API. Okay, let me create our context API. So I will name the context API file like auth context.js. Okay, so to create the context, we have to create like constant. So auth context, and it should be assigned with use context. Okay, that loads from the React.js. Okay, so next we are going to create a provider component. It's like a wrapper for our auth context. Okay, so let me create a component like const. So I want to export it directly. So const, and I will name it like auth context API. Okay, so and let's destructure the properties and access the children. Okay, now this component will return our auth context dot provider. Okay, so let me return like auth context dot provider. Okay, so to this auth context provider, here we have to render our children because we are going to use this not auth context API, name it like provider. We are going to use this component as a parent wrapper in our app component. Okay, so now here we have to implement our logic because here for this auth context provider, we can pass our n number of properties, okay, or a method through this key input property, okay, so that whatever the properties we are going to pass through this object literal here will be available for our entire application, okay. What I am going to do, I am going to write a method for my API call, okay, login API call. So constant login, okay. I want this as asynchronous call, and this login method will have our payload, user login payload, okay. So that is my method. So I can pass the login method here, okay. Add an object, and I can pass like this. If you want, you can assign like this. If left hand and right hand side in an object, both name and assigning variables are same, then we can simply give single name. Okay. So now I am passing the reference of the login. Okay. Now wherever we will use our auth context, I can access the login method and invoke the access method because the auth context provider will passes this reference. Okay. Now here we have to implement our main logic for invocation of the API call. Okay. For invoking the API call, we have to install the most recommended library like Axios. Okay, let's install the Axios. Such like npm install Axios. Okay, click on the link. Okay, here is the command npm I Axios. Copy that command. Okay, now open the terminal. So install the Axios library. So the package is installed successfully. So let's invoke the API call. Okay, const API response. Okay, equal to Axios, so it will be imported from the Axios library. Since our login API call is a post API call, okay, this is a post API call, okay, so post and the URL. So let me copy the URL, and we know we are running the port number our server at 4000 because our React also running 3000, right? So we changed the port number to 4000. Okay, and here we have to pass our payload. Let's await for the response. Okay, and let's check it for the console log. Okay, console log API response. Okay, we are ready with our authentication provider. Now what we can do means here finally export our auth context. Okay, so export default our auth context. This variable we are defaultly exporting. Okay, now go to our app component and make our auth context provider as the main component. Okay, so auth context provider. Okay, and move everything inside of this wrapper content. Okay, so by adding like this, we make our auth context available for entire our application. Okay, so now what I can do, let's go to our login component. Now we have to get the context. Okay, and one more small change here, I have assigned like use context, right? It is not use context, it is create context. Okay, small correction. Okay, so let me remove the use context. Remove the use context. Okay, now we have to use the use context wherever we want to consume the context. Okay, so here in login component, let's define our auth context by using the use context method. Okay, and here I want context method of my authentication context, right? So I can directly pass that variable name here. So auth context, so that loads from the our file and assign it to a variable. Okay, so from this context I can read, so methods are properties inside of my provider component. So what is our provider component? Auth component provider. So what are the methods we are exporting? For now we are only added the login method reference, right? So I can access the login method reference into my lo login component through using the use context by passing the our actual context as the input parameter. Okay, so here you can simply call it like login. Okay, so now what I can do, now let's prepare our form data for payload. Okay, so payload must contains property, username and password. So these are the property names of our Nest.js server application. Okay, you cannot change these names. Means you have to use these names exactly. Okay, copy this and let's create a payload. Payload. Okay, and property. Okay, and what is the other property? Password. Okay, copy from their documentation. Okay, now I have to read the actual values from my form, right? So I am using useref variables. So what I can do, username dot current dot value that fetches the our field value. Okay, entered value. So same way, password dot current dot value. We are using these reference variable because we have binded them to our HTML as a ref variable. Okay, now I have prepared payload. Now what I can do, I can call this login method reference, which is exist actually in the auth context provider. Okay, so here I can await it, login and pass the payload. Okay, now since in API call we have console logging, right? If everything is good and successful, then we can see the token response console log. Okay, there is one more small correction here. I have used key, right? It is not a key property, it is a value property. Okay, so please change it. key to value. I corrected here. Okay. Now let's test our login. Okay. Go to network calls. Okay. And here test username and password you can found here. Okay. Use this for authentication. Okay. Username is test and password is 1234. Okay. So click on login. Okay. Now check the, see here, login 201, that is successful. Okay. So if you see, this is our payload we are passing, and in the preview you can see access token and refresh token we are getting from our success of our login. And if you go to console, see here is the data. So we should log response.data. Okay, let me log like response.data. Okay, let's test again. Enter username like test and 1234 and click on login. And if I check login messages, see now here you can see access token and the refresh token it is printing. Okay, so now I want to decrypt this access token so that I can read the claims that are exist in the this access token. Okay, for decrypting this access token, one library we have to install, that is like npm JWT decode. Okay, click on this link. Okay, copy it from here. Okay, let's install the JWT decode package. And meanwhile, here we can observe how to use it. Just import the namespace and use that namespace as a method and passes our access token, means it will automatically decrypts. Okay, decrypts the data. So the package is installed successfully. Okay, what I will do, let's copy this import name. Okay, and add it here in our auth context.js. Okay, now what I can do, instead of console log, I can decrypt it. Okay, so JWT of, okay, API response.data dot, and here we can see our property name. So copy the access token property name. Okay, we are decrypting the access token property name. So once it is decrypted, I will get like email and username, everything information, right? So now let's store the decrypted data into a variable. Okay, let me create a variable, state variable here. So constant user, set user, okay, use state. Okay, so initially let's pass null value. Okay, and now I can set this value to the user variable. Okay, so I know what are the uh, information that this token contains. Okay, so now what I will do, I will pass this user variable to the values of our auth context provider. Okay, now any component get the user information by using this user property. Okay, so now my aim is I want to use this user property and I want to display the, okay, here I want to display the user email address, and based on user information I want to hide this login menu item also. Okay, so now what I can do, I will go to layout.component. Let's see, because of auth context, now I can read the user information wherever I want because it is maintaining the state auth context API. Okay, so here also just like our login component, here also we can use context. Okay, I can pass the auth context. Okay, and as I need to constant. So in login, we read login method, right? Login component. So here we are passing login and user. One is property and one is method. So in the layout, I want to read the property of user. So I can call user like this. Okay. Now what I will do, I want to display this login link if the user is already logged in. Okay. I want to hide this if the user is logged in. So I can use the expression like user. Okay. If user exist. Okay. Sorry. If user not exist, then only display this nav link. Okay. Not nav link, right? So copy inside it. Now copy this nav link and add it as a second expression. Okay. Now if the user object is empty, then only it will show. Okay. Same way, if user object is not empty, means that means user is authenticated, some user. At that case, I just want to display my email name. Okay. Hash. Okay. And here I want to display my user login. So user dot email. Okay. So if you want to see what are the properties inside of it, what I will do, I will console this decrypted also. Okay. So what I will do, let tokens. Okay. So copy this entire code, decrypt the data, access only access token. Okay. After decrypting, I can console log it. Okay. Access token. Here I can pass as simply access token. Okay. Now test it whether we are successfully seeing our email property and also what are the additional properties available in the decrypted access token. Okay. And a small correction before testing, here remove the negation. Okay. Now let's test it. Okay. Our test user data, reload it once. Okay. Test and password will be 1234. Okay. Now I am clicking on login. See, now here automatically test@test.com email is appearing, and also you can observe login menu item is hidden. Okay. And if I observe my console, here you can see the fully decrypted my access token. Here I have sample information like email, expiration, and sub is like user ID and username. So now I am able to bind at the email data. Okay. So after login, let me navigate back to my home page. So for that, what I will do in the auth context, I can declare a navigate property here. So constant navigate. Okay. I can use navigate. Okay. So that is our React router DOM method. And now here after set user, I can specify like navigate to home page. Okay. Now let's test again whether we are going to navigate or not. Okay. So test 1, 2, 3, 4 and click on login. See, I am authenticated successfully, and here you can see the email of authenticated user, and I am able to navigate to my home page. Okay. So we are done with our login API call. But if I reload now, see, I lost my data, right? Because context API is the application state API. Once the browser is refreshed, JavaScript also refreshed. Okay. So to overcome this problem, what we can do means in the layout.js, okay, here what I will do, let me remove this console. Okay. here what I will do, I will store my token API response data into my local storage. Okay, browser local storage. So local storage dot get item. See, these are normal JavaScript methods, default method. Okay, sorry, set item. We have to save it, right? So I will. It is a key value pair saving. So we have to give some key. So I will give key like tokens. Okay, and API response dot data. Okay, I'm saving both access token and the refresh token. Now on page reload, we have to fetch it from the local storage so that we can again repopulate if the browser is reloaded. So for that, what I will do in the use state of user variable, I will add a arrow function. Okay, and here first let's test whether the local storage okay contains our tokens or not. Okay, so for that local storage dot get items. Okay, tokens. Okay, tokens. If tokens exist, okay, then only our logic we should implement, or else we simply return user information like null. Okay, now let's read the token data. Okay, token data equal to this local storage. Okay, and this is an object, right? While saving, I cannot save it directly like this. Okay, I have to use JSON dot stringify. It will make my object as a string. Okay, now while reading, I can use JSON dot parse. So it will convert the object, sorry, string to object back. Okay, so now what I can do, I can use this same access token decryption line. Okay, copy this, add it here. So here not to this one, here will be token data variable. Okay, I again set our access token. Sorry, it is already a user variable, right? We simply return access token. Okay, so that is how we have to manipulate our state variable. What we are doing on page load, what it will do, it will check for the browser local storage values. Okay, and then if it is exist, then we retrieve them and decode them and again return to the use state variable. Okay, so this will be execute every time page reloads. Okay, and this will be executed when the login is executed. Okay, so first before testing, okay, save everything and go to our developer tools and go to the application and go to the local storage. Okay, we here it is already saved our token. So what I will do to retest carefully, I will clearing the local storage. Okay, so we are whatever data we will store into local storage, right? We are using this method, right? Set items. So in the browser, we can check here. Go to application tab and in the storage section, if you expand the local storage under our domain, you can find the key values here. Okay. Now if I go to my application, once reload the application, okay. Now I got login back. Okay. If I enter my test data, 234 and log in without page reloading, I able to successfully log in and navigated to the landing page, and here you can see the user logged in user email. And if I go to my developer tool, okay, dev tool in the application tab and in the local storage, here you can see tokens. This is my key. I have given a key, right? This key. So with this key, the stringified data, you see here the stringified data value access token and refresh token are saved here. Okay, if you click on it, here it is, you can see the preview. Okay, now the thing is, if I reload this page, I need to retain the email address because my token is already available in the local storage, right? So I am refreshing the page. See, I refreshed, I didn't lost my state because now this code is executing. like fetching from local storage and decoding it and assign it back to user variable, and that user variable we can use wherever we want for display the user information. Okay, so that means we are successfully done with the login API call. Okay, now if the user is successfully logged in, there are so many other APIs we have to consume once the user is logged in. Okay, those APIs are called secured APIs because those APIs only consumed by the authenticated user. They need authentication and they need to use the tokens. We have access token, right? So that token must be used by every next request to consume the data from the API. Okay, so we are going to uh, understand or focus on it, how to consume a secure endpoint next. Okay, so now our main focus is I have a secured endpoint. Okay, so this is my secured endpoint and it gives some favorite movies object response like this. Okay, so to consume a secured endpoint, I have to use my access token as a authorization header. Okay, without authorization header value with token, we cannot consume the secured endpoint. Okay, so let's implement how we can consume the secured endpoint. Okay, so to display the content in this secured endpoint, let me create a new component. Okay, so my new page component is like favorite movie. Okay, so this is our favorite movie component. Now in the app component, let configure a route for our component. So in the app component, add one more route. Okay, path. I will give path like fav movies. Okay, and element my new component. Okay. Okay. Now in our layout, let's add a menu item for my favorite movie. So go to layout. I want to display my menu here. Okay. I will create one more nav element so that it will come at leftmost side. Okay. So I will copy this, but this favorite movie should be displayed once the user is logged in. Okay. So copy the route. Okay. Configure it and change it to favorite movies. Okay. Let's test whether we can see our menu item or not. See here, you can see left hand side, my favorite menu item is coming. Okay. In favorite movie component, let's try to consume that API. Okay. So first let me add some bootstrap code here so that I can loop my content. Okay. So go to bootstrap website, click on components and go for cards. Okay. Let's have this styling. Okay. Copy this HTML. Okay. Add it here and import the namespaces. Okay. Add them here. Okay. I will create a state variable so that I can store my response data, my favorite movie API response data. Okay, so movies, set movies. Okay, and here I can use state variable. Okay, initially empty array. Movies will be my array object, right? So I can replace that here. Okay, I can use like movie. I can add a key attribute here. Okay, movie dot, and you can see the response model here. My response contains simple ID, name, and genre of the movie. So for key, I can pass my ID. Okay. and there is no image, remove the tag, and here for title, movie dot name. Okay, in the description, okay, movie dot. But now to invoke the API call, what I will do, I can use effect, okay, and arrow function. In array, I want this to execute only once. Okay, here I can use axios dot. It is a get call, okay, and add this URL, okay, and watch for the response. So I can set movies like response dot data, okay. And here is small correction. Our API runs under port number 4000. Okay. And here small correction. It's not object. Sorry. It must be array. Okay. State variable, right? Please correct it. Okay. Let's check it. So now if you click on favorite movies and if you go to network calls, in the network calls, you can see 401. That is because unauthorized because we are not passing the token. Okay. So how we can overcome? To make our secured API work, we have to pass our access token as a header value. Okay, so for that, what I will do first, let me fetch the data from the local storage. Our access token is available in the local storage, right? So we have to pass it also. Okay, json.parse and local storage dot get item and tokens, right? So once go to auth context. We saved with key tokens. Okay, that is correct. Okay, once we got the data, I will create a header like, okay, authorization header. Okay, this is default key. Okay, authorization and backticks. How we have to assign the access token value means barrier. It is a JWT token type. Okay, so this our access token value. So token data dot access token. Okay, so this is my header. Now I can pass this header value here in the configuration. Okay, the headers, to that headers I will assign my header. Okay, so if I save and if I check, see, in my favorite movies I am seeing some movie items, and if I go to network calls, see here, this is my favorite movie API network call, and here in the request headers you can see authorization attribute that we passed, barrier space token. And in the response, we are seeing our secured API response data. So like this, we have to consume the secured endpoint. But one thing is, in general, we will have lot of secured APIs, right? So configuring everything manually here is not good. So instead of doing this way, there is one more better way is like using the interceptor. Interceptor, with the help of interceptor, we can auto populate this header. Okay. So for that, what I will do, I will create a JS file here. It is not a component file, normal JS file I am adding here. Okay. So I will name it like JWT interceptor.js. Okay. So here constant JWT interceptor. So here using Axios dot create. Okay. So this is nothing but this variable is a type of Axios. Okay. Using this keyword variable name, I can do normal Axios calls like this is just an Axios. We are creating an Axios instance. Here you can see get, post, all Axios methods. So this is nothing but an Axios. So, but now I will intercept the request. Before my request go to the server, I can intercept here by doing JWT interceptor dot interceptors, okay, dot request, because I want to intercept when the request is going to the servers, okay, use, okay. So here I can configure. Okay, now what I will do, now let me copy this value, okay, from here to here. I am reading the token data, okay. Now I have to configure the headers. So now to configure the authorization header, I can do like config dot, okay, headers dot common, okay, and it will be array. Here I can pass my authorization header value, okay. Now to this, I have to pass my barrier token value. So for that, I can copy this line of code, okay, and then simply return the config. That's it. So what it will do means whenever we invoke any API call using this JWT interceptor Axios instance, okay, that will automatically intercept. This logic will execute before going to the server. Okay, so it will be like a common code where whichever API we want to invoke with access token, we can simply use this instance for call the API call. Okay, and finally export it. Okay, now here rewrite our code. So remove the header. Okay, remove it. Headers. Instead of Axios, I can use JWT interceptor, and that name is imported. Okay, and save it. And if you go and check your page, we are able to access the secured endpoint by auto configuring the authorization header value. Okay, see, if I reload page, see, still I am seeing the response data binded to my UI. And if I check here in the header section, we can see our authorization is success. Okay, request sending along with the authorization header value. Okay, so that's all about how to consume a secured endpoint using the JWT access token. Okay, so previously we have implemented consuming the secured endpoint with the help of passing our access token as a authorization header value. Okay, but access token is a short-lived, means it will expire. Okay, so at the time, with the help of refresh token, we can regenerate our access token. Okay, so for regenerating the access token, so this is the endpoint. Okay, a refresh token endpoint, and we have to pass our expired access token and refresh token as a payload. Okay, here I am expecting expired access token also in the payload. In some API implementation, they no need the access token. They simply depend upon the refresh token itself. So it is just way the API is designed. Okay, here I designed in such a way I require both expired access token and refresh token. Okay, and it's going to give new access token and new refresh token as a response. Okay, so first uh, let's log into our application. So before logging to application, let me make my access token expire less than 30 seconds so that we can understand how to implement this refresh token API key. For that, go to our API project. Okay, in that, go for auth module.ts file. Here you can see expiration 1800 seconds, that means 30 minutes. Okay, I will change it to 30 seconds. Okay, So within 30 seconds, my access token will be expired. So let me stop the application, okay, and rerun my server application, okay. So my server application is up and running. Now if I go to my application and if I try to log in, okay, and if I go to my favorite movies, okay, and network calls. So if I wait for 30 seconds and refresh, see, after 30 seconds, you can see here 401 unauthorized. But in the authorization, we have access token. That means my token is expired. That means invalid. So in this case, how we have to handle it? Okay. So for that, we have to use the our refresh token endpoint. So how we can handle means we can use the interceptor. Previously, we have implemented our interceptor, right, for configuring the JWT access token. Same way, we can check for expiration of the token also. Okay. So for that, what I will do, I will extend this interceptor to invoke refresh token API automatically whenever request fail with an error of 401, that is unauthorized. So here I will extend like JWT interceptor dot interceptors. Previously I intercepted request, right? Now I will intercept the response. Okay. So response dot use. Okay. So in the first method, if the response is normal response, okay, in that case I will simply return that response, means no interruption. Flow will be normal. Okay. Any API call, successful response, then I want to go the flow normally. So I simply return the response. If an error occurs, okay, okay, here I can write like async. If an error occurs, okay, first what I will do, I will check whether the error is happened due to unauthorization or not. For that I can check like error dot response dot status code. I will check, okay, equal equal to 401. That means unauthorized. Okay, exception happened because of unauthorized access. Okay, then I will implement my logic. Okay, so what I need expired token and refresh token as a payload, right? So let's first generate the payload. So let payload, okay, copy the property names here, access token and the refresh token. Okay, so here I want the access token and refresh token. We know how to get the token data, right? So copy this line and get the token data. So here I can use token data dot access token, same property names. Okay, token data dot refresh token. Okay, so I prepared my payload request payload. Now I have to invoke the API call. So to invoke the API call, what I will do, so let API response equal to await. Here I will use Axios. Okay, don't use interceptor. If you use this instance, it will go to infinite loop. Okay, so directly use Axios here for calling the our refresh token endpoint, since it is a post request. So let me copy the endpoint from here. Okay, and change the port number to 4000 and send the payload. Okay, if that API is successful, then what we have to do? Then first reset our local storage again. Okay, with the new API data, that is nothing but new refresh token and access token we will get as a response, right? So tokens and API response data. Okay. I'm updating the local storage with the new access token and refresh token. Then what I have to do, what is the actual API failed due to 401? We have to re-invoke it. Okay, for that what I can do, error dot. So this will contain the old request failed configuration, right? So config dot headers. Okay, so here I can pass authorization. Okay, okay, and assign the new access token we are getting here. Okay, so same way, copy the string. Okay, now it should be API response dot data dot access token. Okay, then finally invoke the API call again by passing the configuration to the Axios instance. Okay, pass the error instance. Okay, I should JSON dot stringify, right, my new API data. Okay, okay, here my Axios not returning fully. So in the else case, after if, here in the else, if any other error occurs, I simply need to return a promise of rejection. Okay, dot reject and pass the error simply. Okay. I should pass config, not errors. Okay, and now see, three API calls are automatically invoked after refreshing the page. See, first favorite movies is invoked. It has authorization header, but it is expired, right? So immediately refresh token is invoked. How it invoked means in the first call request, if we are intercepting the response. See, in the API call request, we are intercepting in the response. Whenever response comes, if it is a normal response, nothing will happen. If error occurs, then it will execute this method. So if it is 401, yes, it is a 401 error. Here you can see unauthorized status code. So here what we are doing, we are immediately invoking the, here we are immediately invoking the refresh token endpoint. So once the response data is coming back, what we are triggering, we are again re-invoking the failed request with the new access token. So this is, see, this is the request reinitiated automatically. Okay, see, like this. Whenever any API call fails, immediately refresh token gets invoked, and then immediately failed API call gets invoked. Okay, like this interceptor helps us to invoke automatically. Okay, we no need to do nothing. We just use this interceptor, JWT interceptor, for invoking the call like this, Instead of directly calling Axios dot get, you can use JWT interceptor dot get, JWT interceptor dot post. So every secured endpoint can be consumed using this JWT interceptor. Okay, so that's all how we can refresh our JWT access token. Okay, next we are going to uh, implement how we can protect the routes. Okay, now our main focus is to protect the routes. Why we have to protect the routes? If you see here I am in authentication state. You can see my email and favorite movies menu items are visible. That means I am authenticated state. So now if I try to access the login page, see, in spite of I am authenticated, I am able to access the login page. Okay. Same way if I try to access this favorite movies component when I log out from this page, then also I am able to access the favorite movies page because there is no protection we have added to protect our pages based on our authentication. Okay, so let's implement the protected routes. Okay, so to implement the protected route, we will create a component where we can extend our routes. Okay, so for that, let's go to my shared set of the component and create a new component like protected routes. Okay, .js. So this is our protected route. Okay, first thing is it's going to read. I am destructuring the props. Okay, so children. So this children is nothing but the component I want to load for the route. Okay, when we complete entire logic, you can understand. Okay, so the thing like this is a page component we want to render. Okay, next I will have one more additional property. This is my custom property. Okay, I will name it like access by. Okay, so first I want to fetch the user information using the use context. Okay, so use context and our context is auth context, right? Okay, let me import the namespace for auth context from. Okay, and from the context let's read the user property. Okay, so now I have user information. Okay, now what I will do, my access by. Okay, for my demo I can expect two kind of values. Okay, so let's check what are those values I will expect. I will like I will make a rule like non-authenticated. Okay, so that represents uh, routes will be accessed by only non-authenticated users, like login page. Only non-authenticated user only have to access the login page. Okay, at that time, if user data not exist, that means user is not logged in and he is trying to access the non-authenticated page. Then we can simply return the children. Okay, else if. Okay, another case I will assume like authenticated. That means user is authenticated. So authenticated users can access only authenticated pages like uh, in our case favorite movies. Okay, so at that time user must be authenticated, right? In that case also I will return simply children. Okay, next global case, either if non-authenticated user is there and contains user information means user is logged in and trying to access the login page. At that time I have to redirect him back to in our case I will redirect him back to home page because home page can be accessed by any person, right? So I will redirect. Same way, if user is authenticated, sorry, if access by value is authenticated but user is not authenticated and trying to access the favorite movie page, at that time also I want to redirect back him to my home page. So here global case I will write like return. So for redirection I can use a component like navigate. Okay, that loads from a React router doc, and here I can specify to and the path. I simply specifying home path, it should be redirected. Okay, so this is my protected logic. Okay, so here access by is my own convention. Okay, in general, you can apply more rules based on user roles like that. Okay, so this is a simple example how to protect the route I am showing. Okay, so now I have created the protected routes. Okay, so now I have to wrap it around the element. Okay, so in app component, if you see for route, we are rendering element, right? So instead of directly giving our component, page component, we have to wrap it around our protected route. Okay, protected route. And inside of it, add our component whichever we want. So if you observe, now this is the children, right? So here I mentioned, right, children means nothing but the component, page component we want to render. Okay. So access by is my custom property. You can you can write your own logic. Okay. So I will give, so login page should be accessed by non-authenticated, right? So I will pass like non-authenticated. Okay. Same way for favorite movies also, I can wrap it with protected routes. Okay. And accessed by property. And this should be accessed by authenticated. Okay. And home page is like everyone. So I no need to give any protected route here. So I can simply leave like this only. Okay. Now if I test, if I go to once reload the page, I am authenticated. And if I try to access the login page, I will immediately redirect back to my home page. See, I'm trying to access the login page. See, but I am landed to home page. That is because of my protected route. So this is a simple idea I am giving. This is not exact code. Okay, you can implement your own code based on user roles and user permissions. All those permissions, all the logic can be implemented here. Okay, so that's about the protected routes. And let's finally finish off this video by implementing the logic for logout. Okay, since I don't have any logout API, okay, actually we should have a logout API in real-time example. But my Next.js application, I don't have any logout API. But what I will do, I will simply clear the local storage and this user variable in my auth context page file. Okay, so here what I will do, I will create a one more method like logout. Okay, so actually if you have a API call for logout, invoke it. For our demo, we don't have any API call. Okay, so ignore API call logic. Now after success of API call, we have to first remove the local storage, our tokens we have set, right? So local storage dot remove item and pass the token name. And also we have to reset our user state. Okay, user variable we have to remove and I will simply pass the null value. Okay. Now after successful logout, I can navigate to my home page, any page, whatever page you want. Okay. So this is my logic, and we have to expose our logout method also through the value property of our auth context provider. Okay. Now let's go to our layout where we have our nav bar. Okay. So here let's add. I want at the end logout button. So here add button. Okay. Is imported as imported. Okay, and variant, let's give primary for now, and type I want button. Okay, this will be a logout button, and I want to access the logout method here. For that I can read logout also here. Okay. Since it is a single line of code, what I will do, I will directly assign it for the on click event. Okay. So on click logout button. Okay. What I will do, I will write a arrow function. In that arrow function, I will simply call the logout method. Okay. And one more thing, this button must be appear only when the user is logged in, right? So check for user variable and exist in that expression, add our button as a second value so that it will render. Okay. So now let's test it. Now here you can see the logout button. If I click on logout, see favorite movies and the email address is gone. And here you can see login. And we are navigate back to the landing page. And if you go to application and if you check here local storage, there is no token. That means we are successfully implemented our logout logic. Okay. So that's all about a sample implementing JWT token authentication and refresh token usage in a ReactJS application. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel, and even to encourage me more, please do like and share the video so that I can create more new videos. Okay. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing